All right, good evening, and I'd like to call meeting to order of the Round Lake Area School District 116 Board of Education here in the Round Lake High School Media Center at 7:02 p.m. on September the 13th. If I could get a roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. DeVera?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Miss Lee, Mrs. Larson, and Mrs. Klingler are absent.
Thank you. All right, please stand and Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, as a reminder, please make sure your phones are on silent and off the table, and making sure that we're holding down the button so that we are heard on the live stream. We have a meeting agenda in the packet. Anyone have any questions in regards to that? If not, we will take a motion to approve the meeting agenda for today.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. With no questions, we'll go to a roll call.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
And we have an approved agenda. And first up is special recognition and presentations. And I don't know that we have anyone here right now, so we will skip over that for the time being. All right, so next up, then we will move to communications to the board. And the first up, it looks like it'll be Mr. Jewett with the CEDAW Governing Board update.
And they presented their final budget. We approved the budget. One of the biggest things that brought up was there are more, it's going up, and just like milk. And also that there are going to be more pairs in the classroom with the intention, and less one-on-one, with the intention of having more coverage in the classroom. That was how I understood it. Also, for the teacher contract, they ended up freezing they basically extended the contract for another year. Pointed out there are a good amount of missing positions or open positions, and they identified what those are and what they're doing to go ahead and rectify it. And then also had a presentation on the extended school program, which was on the Olympics. It was kind of cool. That's all I got. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Jewett? Thank you for the recap. All right, next up is our equity update, and I believe this one is Dr. Stefan. Making the presence known, exactly.
I'll reference that document that's going around throughout the presentation. So, thank you for having me this evening to provide an update on where we're at with our equity work in the district. There will be three particular areas that I will cover in the presentation this evening. First area is just a brief review of the equity vision, which I know we went over this summer. Then I'll dive into a review of the current equity work, where it'll focus on our commitments and our action steps. And then we'll just wrap up with letting you know when I'll be back again to provide an update on the continued work within the district. So to start off with, our equity vision in the district states that at Round Lake Area Schools, we affirm the unique value and essential dignity of every child and adult. We challenge the systemic inequities in society that dishonor this belief, and we commit to transforming our educational system by living equity in all we do. So the document that each of you have in front of you is an equity infographic that was created. It includes the equity definition that we're using as a school district, as well as our vision that I just reviewed. And then along the left-hand side there, you can see the equity commitments that then have a series of action steps for this school year connected to them. So as I walk through the remainder of the presentation, we'll focus on those commitments and action steps. The action steps may not be worded in the presentation exactly as they are there, because sometimes it gets a little bit more detailed as to exactly what we're doing, and the action steps here provide a little bit more of an overview of the work. So moving then into those commitments and action steps, the first one that we have here states, we commit to affirm the value and dignity of all children and adults. So in this particular one, I wanted to direct you to the piece that speaks to embedding SEL practices into instruction. As you know and have heard from Jen Wells, a ton of work was done last school year at the elementary level to provide teachers with some instructional practices focusing on SEL that they could embed into their instruction. And then at the secondary level, we're going to be doing that work of building that piece during this school year. Now, it is important to note that at secondary, teachers are doing community circles to build relationships. They are instructing Calm Classroom to focus on emotion regulation. So there's pieces at secondary. It's just not as well built out as it is currently at elementary, but we're working on it. And then the last point I wanted to stress there was that last stat, continuing to develop community partnerships and partner relationships through our Action Faction work. I know that you guys have heard about the Action Faction with Liz Damp's presentations in regards to one of our PD options for staff. This image here just shows what the staff saw when they were going through the catalog that Liz's team created as far as what are the options for me in my professional development this school year. So the team of teachers that selected to work with me in the Action Faction are also working with a team of district and building administration that just expressed a passion and desire to be working on equity work. So it is really important to say that the Action Faction would absolutely not be happening if it was just me doing this work, because I have a ton of people that are really doing a lot of heavy lifting to support this. So we held our first meeting as a team at the beginning of the school year on the Institute Day, and we narrowed down our scope of work and decided we were going to focus in these three particular subcommittee areas. One group will be diving into looking at our discipline data within the district, focusing on the demographics and looking at how that data is shaking out, and then making some recommendations looking through an equity lens. The second committee is working really closely with Heather Bennett and Eric Apgar to just be thinking about what we can be doing within our Welcome Center, and then also what we can be doing to engage our community more and what we do as a school and create some partnerships there. And then finally, that last team is the team that I'm taking on as my subcommittee to really start thinking about what are the things we can put in teachers' hands for like an immediate, what do I do on the ground to make my classroom more accessible or more equitable for students. So those are our three subcommittees within the Action Faction. So then on to our next commitment. We commit to identify and challenge inequitable opportunities. In this particular commitment, where we're at right now is over the summer, we, as I've noted before, have a partnership with the Equity Literacy Institute, and they have reviewed our student handbook and given us some recommendations for things that we should be thinking about. Just to give you a sample of one of their recommendations was to move the language in our handbook to be pluralized so that we weren't specifically speaking to he or she, and we were attending to students that may identify as non-binary. That is a pretty quick and simple change. Some of the other recommendations will require a lot more conversation, and we'll continue to keep all of you updated as far as any changes that would be made to our student handbook. The next commitment states that we commit to implement equitable and inclusive practices. So in this particular one, I wanted to highlight that last bullet point. We did start this work last year, which I think is nice that some of this work is just continuing into this year. So it isn't necessarily all brand new things being layered on. There's this continuation of professional development for our special education teachers that focuses on specially designed instruction and supporting students with IEPs. And then there is also professional development being provided for our language teachers. It is important to note that last year we only offered that PD for our secondary teachers. But this year we are layering on support for our elementary teachers, really focusing on biliteracy so that they're looking at those like linguistic supports, but now in Spanish, because obviously we're continuing to roll out our dual language program. Our next commitment states that we commit to provide individualization and personalization in teaching and learning. This one I'd like to highlight that we are continuing to reinforce the implementation of mastery learning. That is a conversation that should be occurring in PLCs and definitely is one of the goals required in every school improvement plan. Mastery learning is the whole foundation behind it is individualizing instruction and recognizing that students learn at different paces. Some of them may need corrective activities while some of them need enrichment. So we're continuing to reinforce that instructional practice. Additional commitment says we commit to support the professional mindsets and skill sets required to expand equity. And this particular one, it focuses looking at the PD, and I'd like to highlight the second bullet point here. We have provided, and I brought a copy with me, it's got all my scribbles all over it, but every staff member in the district got a copy of this book this year. It's titled Case Studies on Diversity and Social Justice Education. It is one of the books that I used last year in a voluntary book study, but it's been pretty cool. The principals just started rolling this out within the last couple of weeks during staff meetings. It depended on the building, so they all, had their freedom to kind of decide how to roll it out. But I did have the opportunity to talk to a Round Lake Middle teacher who his statement was, I'm glad I did that book study with you last year because I could really kind of help facilitate conversations with staff, but that it was great to see the staff really being open and willing to looking at things. And then I also had a conversation with an assistant principal at McGee who just had shared that he was really impressed that staff were just really honest with one another and reflecting and just thinking through how they could do things differently. I found this book to be very powerful to just get you to think about a lot of things that I personally did as a teacher that I for sure could have done better or differently in thinking about supporting all kids. So I'm excited about where that book will take us throughout the school year. So that covers all of our commitments for where we're at right now, but I will be back in December to give an additional update with where we're at on any additional action steps. I may repeat some of the ones you've already seen just because more work will be done. And then also I'll be back in April and then in the summer, either our June or July meeting. Okay. Any questions?
Dr. Steffen, just a comment. I really like the layout of the PowerPoint and just how thoughtful you and the entire team has been throughout this entire process and how inclusive. Sometimes with something like this, sometimes it moves too fast or too slow. It seems like you've hit the sweet spot with understanding what's about the right amount and at the right pace. So Susan, you, your team, and the rest of the staff just really appreciate the time you're putting into this. Love the infographic and just wanted to call out, that's the artwork that our student put together, correct?
Yeah, the image on the screen right now up to the right on the top is the image from the high school. There was a team of 2 students I worked with through the graphics class, and Jess Crone helped kind of facilitate that too. But yeah, it was fun to help 2 kids kind of figure through how you do this. I got to be their client, and so yeah, it was a great experience for me and the kids.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. All right, next up is contacts under 1,000, and I see there's nothing to report in regards to that, so we will move forward to the and FOIA report was out there. Did anyone have any questions in regards to the FOIA report? Hearing none, we will then move to our next one, which is a reminder of the ISB Fall Lake Division meeting. We will be going on October 13th. The one thing I do know is I don't think they've announced the location yet, but from what I've heard, it's Gurnee. So it's not going to, I don't believe we're going back to Mundelein this time like we normally do in the fall. I think it's going to be Gurnee. But I don't think we've announced that yet. So keep that on your calendar. And the next one up on the calendar is going to be the homecoming parade, which is Saturday, September the 18th. Any questions in regards to the homecoming parade? Hearing none, we will now move quickly on to public comment. Members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and a link to the electronic public comment form can be found in the board documents. Electronic public comments will be accepted up until the time the board reaches the public comment section of the meeting, which is now. So at this time, do we have any electronic public comment? Hearing no electronic public comment, I'll ask, do we have any public comment? Hearing no one stepping forward for public comment, we will now move forward and on to committee reports. And I believe that Mr. Jewett is going to be back up with the Community Engagement Committee update.
We met today for the Community Engagement Committee. One of the things, we will start meeting on a monthly basis, where in prior years we met quarterly. There's a lot of information. Next time back will be on October 4th. We'll be debriefing at that point. One of the things we talked about was Goal 1, which was is presenting the new communications manual. We'll be presenting that next month for feedback and approval. Also talked about implementing consistent school communications expectations. Those are rolled out. The SMORE implementation, which if you've seen the Golden Apple hit your inbox, that's one of the newsletters that have been going out. Part of that consistent school communication expectations, making that consistent, is having an appropriate schedule, scheduling and communicating with the buildings and the principals to go ahead and align all that so that families aren't getting bombarded by information. We will be discussing incorporating students in social media, starting to develop possible internships coming up. That'll be pretty cool. Also, something else that was really interesting is there's a very robust interest in community engagement. One of the things you heard from Dr. Sevens, she talked about the what are those things? The action faction. Yeah, I'm like that funny little word, action faction. So one of the groups is community engagement. There were two other groups that came out of different committees and different subcommittees that we discovered were overlapping. And so we're going to put together one super group and determine what are some of the initiatives and the action step to take to grow the community engagement and engage those groups. And the groups consist of admin, staff, both district and school-wide, which is pretty sweet. And then the other piece was implementing improved and enhanced school communication partnership plans. And it's establishing a plan for district action plan for partnership through a district membership. It's called a National Network for Partnership Schools. And then also at some point, we'll discuss community engagement for some of the large-scale initiatives like Pleviac, space enrollment and the building impacts, ECC program extension, and the Welcome Center. So I went quick. I'm pretty sure I forgot something.
Great update. Any questions? All right, sounds great. Well, thank you very much for that. And next up will be the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board President Francisco and the rest of the board. Homecoming plans. The homecoming parade is set for this Saturday, September 13th. Board members, please plan to meet at the main entrance of Round Lake High School by 8:15. Parade lineup will begin at 9 a.m. at Beach Elementary School. The parade will begin at 10 a.m. and will conclude at the high school. Anyone riding in the wagon must wear a mask. Anyone walking the route will not be required to wear a mask. And I think I learned today I might be driving the wagon, so watch out, Round Lake. College of Lake County virtual author event. The College of Lake County, in partnership with Round Lake Area School District 116 and the Round Lake Area Public Library, will kick off the Latinx Heritage Month this Friday, September 17th, by hosting a virtual author event. Erica Sanchez, author of the book I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, will join virtual attendees across Lake County to share her story. Erica grew up in Chicago, Illinois, facing many challenges. Our Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee has selected her book that highlights the importance of mental health awareness for their book study this year, which in itself is fantastic. Our Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee is engaged in a book study. Board members are invited to register for this event. You've been provided with a link. This presentation will be given in English with Spanish translation. The following donations have been made to the district and schools in accordance with board policy. We are informing the board of these donations at this time. Thank you letters will be prepared for each donor. Lynn Epperson Agency donated 96 $5 gift cards to the district staff. Brian Guerin donated a drum set to the Round Lake Middle School music program. The Gorder Family Foundation, which have been amazing supporters of the district for years, again, will be providing $10,000 for the Panther Crew student mentoring program at the high school, and then $6,000 for the Web, which is the middle school version of the high school program at both of our middle schools, Round Lake Middle and John T. McGee Middle School. So thank the Gorders. The District 127 Public Service Practicum class donated school supplies to Ellis, and Ellis was also provided with art supplies by the All-American Exterior Solutions. We have a new one that's not on here, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but I'd like to formally announce that our board president, Michael Francisco, is being nominated for the Illinois Association of School Boards Lake Division Vice Chair. I think this is great for the district, so congratulations on that. And then staffing update, next Monday, September 20th, the board will be asked to approve a new agreement with Express Employment Professionals. This agreement will include temporary staffing in the areas of administrative clerical support to the health services team at each school and classroom monitor supervision at the elementary. This support initially will be funded by ESSER. I do want to provide a little bit of context for that, just for the full board, in addition to what I just read. So I am on weekly, I'm engaged in numerous groups. Even prior to COVID, it's increased with the having to work with the pandemic, but I'm on the executive board of AdRed, which represents roughly 90 school districts in suburban, probably northeastern Illinois, many of whom are in Lake County, Cook County, and suburban Cook. So big, very, very big group, primarily spends time with legislative advocacy. I'm also on the executive board of the Large Unit District Association, which is close to the 40 largest school districts in the state. I'm also on a chain with other, the Northern Lake County Conference superintendents. That's a mix between unit and high school districts. And we don't really talk about sports unless it's COVID related at that group. But those groups, we are all having conversations about how we're dealing with the current situation. To a group, every single group that I'm affiliated with is running into staffing shortages. Every single one. In many, if not all of the same positions that we're struggling with. Bus drivers, nurses, teaching assistants, operations workers. And I don't really think the issue is unique to school districts. I think the most recent federal jobs report showed there were over 10 million vacant positions nationally. So what I am finding and what we're finding as a team is that we are having to think of different ways to tackle some of these, what have traditionally not been significant issues. And by the way, this is fine that this is happening, and I think it's really reflective of just us, many of us in the room. Our entire focus right now is staying open. Like, that's it. That's what the focus is. That's what the goal is. And so in some instances, I feel like we're playing whack-a-mole, just dealing with problems as they come up. But some of these things we wouldn't have experienced had we not been, open the way we are. So I think it's in a weird sort of way, it's a good problem to have. I'm optimistic that the longer we stay open, the longer we will be able to stay open. But again, our primary focus is to have our kids in in-person learning. I mean, that's what the driver is with everything we do. My team is aware that that's like my priority. We talk about that, but we are dealing with periodic issues in terms of staffing. We're also running into issues with substitutes. That's the other one I forgot to mention. So we are down this path of actually having to look at being creative with certain solutions that may be non-traditional. One of them is trying to work with a staffing agency, because we can't. The job market is just really hard with some of these positions. We had a very good experience working with Express, which is one of the agencies we work with when we did the vaccine pod. Our director of human resources, Christy Balasiotis, is a very, very good contact. They've been a good partner with us. So without getting into the weeds, I think, it's when we run into issues where we're not staffed appropriately, we can be open, but one absence can impact 3 classrooms because there's a domino effect. Another thing that we're running into is because of the need to fill sub positions, many of the people that we hired aren't filling the role that they were hired to fill. That impacts retention, right? Long term, people come in with a certain idea of what they should be doing. And we have, our staff is as good as any. We have team players and we have people that are willing to be flexible, but over time that kind of starts to wane. And I just want to say that with our non-certified staff, it's a little bit different because they're not obligated to stay here for the full year. They have to give us some notice, but it's not even close to what we can do with certified staff. So my plan is to bring more detail back next week. Obviously, the contract will bring back, but what we're also going to do is vet our solution with the finance committee, because that's like next week anyway, and then bring the contract itself will be brought forward to the board. At this point in time, these are temporary solutions. I think our goal would be to try to keep these temporary positions maybe through December and then reassess in early November for after. So given the magnitude and scope and importance of this, I did want to provide a little more context and see if the board had any other questions about this specifically. But again, something that, Round Lake is competing for the very same employees that many of the other districts are. So we just are staying at it. I really appreciate the creativity with the team, and Christy and HR and our association's been very good in understanding, and so I just wanted to get this out in front of the board.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, we will move on, and thank you for that superintendent's report, Dr. Mendoza. And I think it's time that we start doing some action.
Yes, I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of the August 16th, 2021 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Tavera, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes. And motion passes.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the employment report as listed and the accounts payable report in the amount of $2,889,895.31.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Motion passes, and I think we are now to introduction of our new administrator. You're getting that good long walk in again.
All right, I'm here this evening. It is definitely with pleasure to introduce Nadia Moreno as our new language learner coordinator within our language department. Nadia is coming to us with 21 years of experience in education in Mexico and in Illinois. She received her bachelor's degree in Puebla, Mexico, followed by a master's degree in teaching from Aurora University. She also earned an additional master's degree in educational leadership with the American College of Education. Nadia has worked as an elementary bilingual teacher, also a high school Spanish teacher, so we will have to have some good stories about that one. And then she also has served as a Latino outreach coordinator within her previous school district. So lots of great experience that she's bringing to our team, and we're really excited. On a personal note, she is married to an educator. I believe you said a special educator as well, like special education, correct?
He was, yeah. He's an
So that's always good for me in the language world. I know Lisa Marie and I always are trying to keep connected, so that will be super helpful as well. And she has 3 little boys currently at the elementary level that keep her, I am certain, very, very busy. We're excited to have Nadia on our team as she is passionate about language learning and cultivating and fostering educational environments where language learners feel included and successful. So please welcome Nadia Moreno.
Well, this is new. That's the first new thing I just learned. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the welcome. I am very excited to join the team, and I'm looking forward to work with all of you, with the school communities and the community at large. Thank you all.
All right, we'll go on to new business. I need a motion to approve the reclassification of the Operations Secretary 1 to Operations Secretary 2 position.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Hearing no questions, roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I need a motion to approve the 2021-2022 intergovernmental agreement between Round Lake Area School District 116 and the Village of Round Lake for the services of Student Resource Officer at an annual cost of $85,355.30.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. DeVera, motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. I do have a question in regards to the addendum for the SRO, where we were asking for the clarification on that they'll be following our guidelines. I'm not so convinced that the document that we have in the packet actually meets that expectation.
There was an original document, and then there was a modified document that was uploaded. The second document says the Village of Round Lake will follow Round Lake Area School Community Unit School District 116 COVID-19 guidelines when on district property.
Okay, thank you very much. I did not.
Yeah, I was just
Notice
going to
that.
mention that. I know in the Finance Committee meeting, there was no mention of the COVID guidelines, and we had asked administration to go back for the correction. What was originally uploaded to the packet did not meet what was discussed at that previous meeting. I did reach out to administration, and that was corrected, so you should see corrected addendum.
Yep, thank you very much. And thank you for the clarification. All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes. And motion passes.
I need a motion to approve the administration. Sorry, getting used to the new form. All right, I need a motion to approve the school mint contracts for Hero for a total of $20,848.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. DeVera,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco.
Yes. Motion passes. All right, I believe that gets us out of the action and into our positive occurrences. So I will open up the floor to positive occurrences.
I know the band did their competition this past weekend and they placed well. I don't know the exact placement, but they had a really nice showing at their performance at Grace Lake North High School.
Yeah, I think it was the guard. The guard placed first in division, and overall placed second, and drumline placed second, if I'm not mistaken. And then I'll just say we've had two really great football games, great crowds, great to see the public back out, and that we're getting that community involvement. So definitely thank you for that. And then looking forward to the homecoming parade on Saturday. And we've got a big soccer match on Friday evening at the stadium. So if anybody who's available, come on out.
And it's an away football game at Grant this weekend too, or Friday.
Any additional positive occurrences?
Well, we are on week 4. We're open. It's been no. I'm serious. I mean, I know it seems it is through the cooperation of the parents, the hard work of the team, the staff in the district, the teachers, the support staff, the bus drivers. I shouldn't have done that because whenever I miss somebody, but it's just the entire staff. So I think I'm just grateful that our kids are coming, and it is, the teachers and the support staff have an additional layer. The administrators that we haven't historically had, but it's just we're starting week 4, and some of the COVID data is actually looking pretty good, and just not necessarily in Round Lake only, but just generally speaking, we're seeing some positive trends nationally. Okay, let me rephrase that. The trends are good with some of what we're seeing in Lake County and Illinois, and I'm just cautiously optimistic that we're going to keep seeing that. So just grateful to have our kids in.
So my son he's with Transitions, and they've been going out to work sites as well. And so it's pretty cool to put his hands to work. That's really good.
All right. Next up would be discussions for topics for future meetings. Any future agenda items that the board would like to bring to the administration's attention?
We are going to be bringing at a board meeting in in October. We'll have to see, but the athletic vision, the presentation that's being brought forward. So just wanted you to know we hadn't forgotten about that.
It's not going to be a spooky thing, right? Because
It will not be a spooky presentation.
all right. Hearing no additional topics for future agenda, bear with me. Now I've got to find how to. All right. I think we're back to another action. Even though we didn't talk about that yet. Should that? Right. Okay.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes from June 21st, 2021 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. DeVera,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, now I get to do my fun speech. What I'm going to ask for is a motion to go into closed session for the discussion of minutes of meeting lawfully closed under the OMA, whether for purposes of the approval of the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by Section 206-5120-2C21. Also, employment matters, Section 5 ILCS 120-2C1. Collective negotiating matters, 5 ILCS 120-2C2, and closed meeting minutes, Section 5 ILCS 120-2, Section C21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera.
Mr. Francisco, there'll be no action, correct, when we come out, or is that? That's
Yeah, I do
correct.
not see any
There's
action
no action.
afterwards,
Yeah.
so this will end the public component of the meeting. We will have closed and then we will be done. Roll call, please.
Mr. Francisco,
Yep.
Mr. DeBera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett.
Yep.
And we are into closed session. Thank you very much, everyone. You guys have a great evening, and we look forward to having our next meeting next Monday. So thank you very much.